rights are provided for in Part 6 of the Nigeria Data Protection Act 2023. They include the following. The right to be informed about the collection and the use of their personal data, the right to access personal data, the right to opt in and out from processing at any time, the right to have inaccurate personal data rectified or completed if it is incomplete, the right to request for a ratio of data, the right to be informed on retention period of their personal data with the controller, the right to restrict processing in certain circumstances, the right to data portability allows the data subject to obtain and reuse their personal data for their own purposes across different services, the right to object to processing in certain circumstances, the right to withdraw consent at any time where relevant, and the right to lodge a complaint with the Nigeria Data Protection Commission, NDPC. Data protection obligations. Any company whose operations entail gathering and using an individual's personal data is required by law to adhere to minimal data protection requirements. Now, these organizations are required to abide by following requirements since they are legally recognized as data controllers or data processors. Lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. Under this principle, data processors must tell data subjects about the kinds of personal information they have collected and how it will be used. The information gathered must be handled legally and openly with regard to the individuals whose data it contains. Purpose limitation. According to this principle, personal information can only be gathered for clearly defined acceptable reasons and can only be handled for the purposes which they were collected. Now, the data should not be further processed in any manner incompatible with the purpose. Data minimization. Personal information must be sufficient, pertinent, and kept to a minimum for the purposes for which it is processed. The data controllers and processors should limit their use of information to that which is necessary for processing. Data controllers are responsible for making sure all the data under their control is correct and current. Data controllers are required to take responsible measures to guarantee that erroneous data is promptly corrected. Storage limitation. According to this principle, data controllers are required to make sure that personal information is not kept on file for longer than is necessary. Most firms are in charge of keeping confidential information from financial statements to employee records. As a result, a thorough retention strategy needs to be created to guarantee appropriate handling and prompt destruction of sensitive materials. Integrity and confidentiality. Data controllers are required by the principle to provide organizational and technical safeguards that enable the protection of personal data under their control. Such precautions include putting up firewalls, using data encryption technologies, updating their systems frequently, storing sensitive files on clouds, granting only authorized personal access to sensitive or classified data, properly labeling files according to their importance. Sensitive files should be marked red or classified, creating policies on the use and management of data, and making sure that senior management and staff are trained in data management. Accountability. Data controllers have an obligation of care to safeguard data subjects' personal information from unauthorized access, misuse, and loss. Accountability requires the data controller to take responsibility for what they do with personal data and how they comply with the other principles. Other obligations of data controllers include regarding the collection and handling of personal data, data controllers and processors are required to maintain a privacy policy. Now, the company's website must prominently display this kind of privacy policy. When a data controller hires a third party to process personal data on their behalf, the relationship between the data controller and the data processor must be documented in writing. Now, the data controllers delegate processing to the third party referred to as a data processor. They must take reasonable steps to guarantee that the processor abides by the rules and regulations that apply to them, support the processor in fulfilling their duties to respect the rights of data subjects, and if necessary, give them information that they reasonably need to comply with the NDPA. To guarantee compliance with data protection legislation, data controllers must demonstrate appropriate governance by designing a data protection officer or officers. Training is necessary for the data protection officers to oversee internal privacy initiatives, keep an eye on compliance, and provide guidance on privacy-related duties. In addition to making sure that a thorough audit of their privacy and data protection policies is carried out and that the results are filed with the Nigeria Data Protection Commission on an annual basis, data controllers are required to put appropriate safeguards in place to protect the fundamental rights, freedoms, and interests of data subjects. Data controllers should put security measures in place inside their businesses to safeguard the private information of their employees, clients, and suppliers.